All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back for another awesome episode. I have another incredible guest with us today. We got Chase Tolleson in the house. He is a former skinny kid who got jacked. He spent 4 years in the Navy, had a gym for 8 years, turned an online coach, and now he coaches other coaches. So when it comes to the whole behavior change and getting shit done, this guy is one I cannot wait to pick his brain on. So Chase, welcome to the show.
Brian, thank you so much for having me. I had a friend of mine. Uh, I sent her some of my analytics for my content this week, and she goes, "Can I get inside your brain?" I was like, "When you say pick your brain," I was like, "Oh, careful what you wish for. You might come out covered in some stuff."
Hey, we'll see. We might come out bloodied and beaten, but it'll be for the good.
Yes, sir.
So I love starting off with like your origin story. So it's like I know a lot of people don't necessarily understand the struggle that it is with when you start off skinny and you try and build muscle, because I've definitely been on both ends where it's like trying to eat more to gain weight and trying to lose weight by eating less. Eating more is substantially harder.
I've only been on one end, so I'll take your word for it. Um, and I guess that also explains why I've always managed to stay lean even when I'm trying to bulk. And
One of the lucky ones.
yeah, 100%. I totally get that. When I opened my gym, I realized that it was going to take, and I'll backtrack this into my story. When I opened my gym, I realized that it was going to take actual effort to connect with people who had weight to lose, because I had only been on the other side of that. Uh, I was luckier than most on the whole fitness being a part of my life thing, because when I was 4 years old, my dad had a weight bench in his bedroom. When I was a kid, I would ride my bike while he would jog. So, yeah, I was skin and bones. When I walked into eighth grade, and I had been working out with my dad some in the basement, I'd actually been upstairs at Lifetime Fitness by this point because I was 13. When I was 12, I went sprinting up the stairs because you could use the stuff upstairs when you were 12. Uh,
Yep.
I remember a personal trainer walking by when I was on the pec deck one day, and she goes, "How old are you?" I was like 12. And it was like my birthday's June 27th. It was probably June 29th. I was so proud I was up there. Um,
Yeah. Like a kid 21 with his card showing up to buy booze, like, yep, I'm
exactly.
good, I swear.
Exactly. And eighth grade, one thing that really kicked the fire for me even more was eighth grade. I walked into school and I was wearing a tank top and I had a buzz cut. And one of my friends, eighth grade boys say the funniest things. He goes, "Dude, you look like you have cancer." I'm like, "Oh, okay, time to start eating more." Um, my parents really loved the nightly can of tuna before bed over the kitchen sink while they were trying to relax and eat dinner or relax and
I
watch
gotta
TV.
ask you, do you throw mayo in it?
I did. Yeah, I
All
totally
right.
did.
Another one
Yeah.
on the team.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I was looking for all the calories. I lifted weights through high school, and I remember the summer between sophomore and junior year. I had a June birthday, so I was younger than most of my grade. And I went back junior year, 16 years old, and one of the guys looked at me. He's like, "Dude, what happened? You like blew up over the summer." And I'm like, "Well, maybe my hormones hit, or maybe this past 3 or 4 years finally gave me that overnight pop, right?" Um, and fitness was just a thing for me. It was always the constant. I had a Camaro. I got a little bit into like boxing and kickboxing, and it was always the thing. Even when I was a bit of a delinquent, right? So I was the last one walking into school. I had the '88 Camaro. I smelled like multiple different kinds of smoke, and and it was also the reason that I quit smoking cigarettes, because I was like, well, I'll just wait till after my workouts. And then I was like, well, why am I even smoking at all if that doesn't go along with my goals? Uh, and I didn't have much direction after high school. And I thought when I was a kid that I was going to be a third generation United pilot. Okay. 9/11 happened when I was 13 years old. Uh, my dad, my dad's still alive, and he didn't work for 6 months. The industry took a massive hit. His contract got changed. My mom went back to work. Oh, boo hoo. Like, My dad was still an airline pilot, right? Like it was a big shift for our family though, and the industry changed forever. And the plan had been that I was going to get glider lessons when I turned 14. Well, the cash wasn't there for that. So then it started this divergence of the path, but I didn't really have a plan besides that. So after high school, I was like, well, I'll go get my gen eds at the local community college. That didn't work. I was still smoking a lot of weed. Um, Stuck around for a couple of years, tried selling cars, tried doing this, and then started talking with recruiters. At this point, I'm like 19, 20 years old. It's 2008. And I'm like, I'm a fitness junkie. I'm testosterone filled Camaro driver. Like, I want to go spec war. Well, the Army didn't want me to do that because of my record. I got picked up at 18 with some paraphernalia in the car. Uh, so I walked over to, or I'm sorry, the Air Force didn't want me to do that. So I walked over to the Army office. They're like, well, yeah, we can send you off infantry, but we can't guarantee you Ranger school. It's like, no, I want to do the cool stuff.
Yeah, like Rangers or SEALs or something
Uh-huh.
big.
Well, exactly. So I walked over to the Navy office and they said, I was like, hey, what about EOD right here? They're like, well, why don't you just go SEAL? Like, they're like, you go get LASIK, we'll waive your misdemeanor. It's like, oh man, LASIK, that's like 4 grand. Like people's cutting my eyes. My second cousin at the time was a retired Air Force officer and the senior civilian at the Department of Naval Intelligence. He might have still been working missile defense. He was up there at the Pentagon, rubbing elbows with admirals and whatnot, right? And he gets word that I wanted to go be a SEAL, his cousin's kid. And looking out for my mom, he sent me a book about what it's really about how you could be the one guy left from your team, stranded on a mountainside, getting sheltered by people in a village, and finally picked up by the Army Rangers. And for anybody who read the book or saw the movie Lone Survivor, that sounded familiar.
I was just gonna
Yep.
ask. I'm like, that sounds a lot like Lone Survivor.
Yeah, and he sent me the book as like a way to dissuade me. But I'm at this point a 20-year-old testosterone fueled male. I read it in 72 hours and put the car up for sale that I said I'd never sell. I got LASIK. I ran, I swam, I ran, I swam, I ran, I swam till I was blue in the face. I passed the physical standards test, blew it out of the water, passed the psych eval, and I go to contract in January 26, 2010, and they say, sorry, new instruction came out 5 days ago. Your misdemeanor is no longer waiverable. So that was fun. I taught, and because he's family, he went to bat for me. He handed my package to the deputy chief of naval personnel, who said, sorry, don't believe his story, can't help him. Story was one that the recruiters told me to write.
Dang.
Yeah. So I go back up. I've talked with 3 branches at this point. I'm fed up, man. I go back up there and I say, fine, get me out of town as fast as possible. Well, the Air Force, I know my ASVAB scores from, I took it originally with the Air Force, and I had scored 97th percentile in mechanical. And
You
then,
did way better than I did.
uh, and the Navy, they go, all right, cool, you leaving. And this is 2010, right? Fast was like 2 or 3 months. You go, all right, you leave in 9 days. You're an engineman. It's like, oh, okay. So I had like no time in whatever, like the whatever the program's called, where you work out with the recruiters before you go. Like, it's like, no, going to boot camp. Uh, Spent 4 years on a rotational minesweeper crew. We The hulls were too small to sail from San Diego to the Persian Gulf, so we would train up in San Diego, fly over to Bahrain, and man up a hull over there. Did 3 deployments. My plan was when I got in, like, I'll drop a package and go to Buds, go be a SEAL after a couple of years. Well, I ended up at a command with only 80 billets there, and I was good at what I did. So they said, no, even if you get accepted, we're going to keep you here. We need you spinning wrenches. So I had a chip on my shoulder. I grew disenfranchised with a broken leadership and flawed advancement structure. And I got out after 4 years, opened a gym in August 2014 in my hometown. And the last decade's been a blur of business and helping people absolutely shift their lives in multiple different ways.
Sounds about right for an entrepreneurial endeavor where it's like, okay, I'm not a big fan of my leaders. I want to do my own thing and do it the right way.
100%, man. 100%.
Yep, that's awesome. And it provides a lot of good insight because I mean, it's where you started and it kind of curated your whole journey. So when it came to training people, I know you're more like the hardcore route where you swam yourself to death, ran yourself into the ground. And how was that going from that to opening up your own gym and having like Mrs. Jones be like, I just want to get a little bit in shape. Like I'm not trying to kill myself.
Oh, that wonderful question. Because I got out in 2014, the height of the CrossFit bubble. So like
Oh boy.
I opened a CrossFit gym, like we
Very
shit.
smart.
Yeah. And there's a whole story there. We shifted direction a couple of years later, partially because of what I started seeing. Um, I opened it up. I was like, I'm going to get a team to regionals. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go to the games. And then I find out that the people in my gym had mortgages and families and jobs. They just wanted to feel good. Like most people start working out because they want to feel the way they think fit people feel. And that was it right there. And I was like, oh, okay. So then it was walking this line between giving them enough that they still get that like that hit, like wanting to feel good, wanting to feel like I worked out, and honoring the fact that like they have other load on their nervous system. They have other stressors and they can't be all beat up trying to play with their kids. Like, you go home just absolutely smoked and you got a 4-year old that wants to stay up till 10 p.m. because they accidentally took a nap. Like, good luck.
Yeah, I can't imagine trying to run around with a toddler after a brutal leg day. It's like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, 100%, man. Um, it was a relatively slow burn. I became a big fan of minimum effective dose. Like,
And for anybody who doesn't know what that is, can you explain it in the way that you like to convey it
yeah.
to people?
So minimum effective and maximum recoverable volume. This is so much fun getting to put my fitness nerd hat back on. I'm usually talking about business so much these days. Minimum effective and maximum recoverable. So your maximum recoverable volume, like if you walk, and this is also like your pain threshold. Your like if you walk across the street and you get hit by a bus, you're gonna break, right? Obviously, that's well above your breaking threshold. Just on a gym sense, minimum effective volume is the minimum dose to affect change, and maximum recoverable is the most that you can recover from. Now, down the chase rabbit hole with this one, maximum recoverable volume is not just what you're doing in the gym. It is your work. It is your stress from the fact that you and your husband or your spouse have not had a date night in 3 months and you're kind of at each other. It is the story you tell yourself about yourself and this havoc it is wreaking on your nervous system. It's the story you tell yourself about your boss. It's all the other little loads that add up. And then you go in and you do a workout and you tweak your back and you think, oh, it's the deadlifts that hurt my back. Like, maybe they were the icing on the cake. And the fact that you are overstimulated, scrolling social media, aren't sleeping well, and are watching TV until midnight because you think you have a hard time falling asleep when really just a down regulation practice before bed would be absolutely amazing. The deadlifts could have actually helped your back if we had dealt with all the other stuff.
Yeah.
So, and to put a little bow on that one, minimum effective volume is where I prefer people to be training. Like 3 times a week, get in, get enough stimulus. Because if we look at the literature, I love sounding smart. Look at the literature. If we look at that stuff, though, there's diminishing returns after we get that minimum effective volume. So we're in there just for that like that little extra push, and the extra load on our nervous system and on our body. Is it really worth it? So
Yeah. And that's pretty cool that you just said that because this is coming off. I just got back from Vigor Ground in Seattle. And one of the big quotes that stuck with me from Joel Jameson, of all people, like the
mhm.
conditioning god, he's like, you'd rather be a mile short than an inch too far.
Yes. Yeah, dude,
because that
100%.
inch can wreck you and wreck your journey.
Wreck it. And a lot of people, myself included, think that their minimum effective volume is much lower than it is. And they think their maximum recoverable is much higher than it is.
Yeah. Being in
That,
touch with that is tough.
yeah. Yeah. Like, um, on that note, if you ever go through like a busy season in life, the amount that it takes to maintain your progress in the gym is actually boring. Like if you've got there, if you've gotten to your goals, if you're in a busy season, and I'm a fan of always at least driving a little bit of stimulus, but if you go through a season where it's like, wow, there's a big load, I had a death in the family, this and that, you can only get in the gym once a week and do a full body workout for a month. After that month, you're probably going to be in an okay place because it's about. I I stirred the pot a couple years back on a post and it managed to get some comments, but I said, I see you're 75 hard and I raise you over 2 decades of consistency. And
That's
that's
real hard.
yeah, 100%. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's minimum effective over a long enough time horizon. You are in elite health.
Yep. And that's huge because I mean, going back to what you said, it's like if you look at the literature, it's about 30-ish% of what it takes to build is what it takes to maintain. So if you're doing three
Yeah.
days in the gym, doing good, and you get that one day, the maths out.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. That 30% is exactly it. And
Yep.
it can be difficult to accept for those of us that enjoy the way fitness feels.
Yep. And it is easy to get hooked on that feeling where it's like, okay, I feel like I'm doing something, I'm improving my health, but then it like can go a little too far.
You are okay. We're knocking on a rabbit hole here. Uh, by the
I
way,
just
my
keep poking the bear. I'm like, let's see what happens.
my podcast producer, as I turn around to open my vent in here to make sure I can stay warm, my podcast producer used to say every time Chase says rabbit hole, I do 10 kettlebell swings and 10 squats, and my glutes are on fire at the end. I had it in one of his episodes, but
So everybody listening, you got to do that right now. If he says rabbit hole again,
100%. Um, a lot of people are using the gym the same way an alcoholic uses a bottle of tequila. And this is why my personal practice when I was coaching fitness, and I use the same tools in business now when it's applicable, shifted to helping people rewrite the story they tell themselves about themselves. Because we go in and we ramp our bodies up into this parasympathetic state and we get super stressed. And guess what our system will do after it goes way sympathetic, way fight or flight, it'll pull itself back down into parasympathetic, into rest and digest. We go, wow, I feel so good after that workout.
it's like that forced rebound.
Hmm. But then we go home and we still don't know how to communicate well with our spouse, and we're still overreactive with our kids. And we still like, I got my workout. That's a mental health practice, right? You want to go down a words rabbit hole?
Let's do it.
You know
And
where
that's
abrac
another couple of swings for everybody, just so you know.
I'm gonna do it on purpose now. Do you know where abracadabra comes from?
I I know it's magic related, but I really don't know.
Aramaic, which is Old Hebrew. It's the root language of all the Abrahamic religions. For with my word I create, or with my word I influence. Okay. Uh, the story we tell ourselves is made up of words. Right? Uh, People get it is so easy in the mindset realm or personal development to go down this like super intangible rabbit hole, right? It's like, oh, just think better, just do better things, just focus on the positive,
Be mindful.
be mindful, which I'm a fan of. Like I still meditate. And when we look at the words we are using to describe our life, and we look at some simple mechanisms, like are we looking at what we don't want or what we do want? You know, how many negations do we use per day? You know, Are we using soft talk? Like, think about the flakiest person you know. I might probably try to make it tonight. Like, what happens if we talk about our goals that way? And then the one that really stings, especially in a marriage, uh, projections. It takes two to tango.
I'm
And
glad you're going down this rabbit hole.
yeah.
Everybody swing because I just got engaged. So this is really going to help me.
Oh, dude, I've been with my wife for a decade, and we're married for we were married 7 years in June. So, um,
Wow.
and it still comes up where like I'll feel myself chewing on something she did in the back of my head. It's like, that's silly. Why even thinking about bringing that up right now? And then I'm like, oh, well, I didn't get those three things done today. Let's go look at me first. It's the age old saying, anytime you point a finger, there's three pointing back at you. And when we start within as a spouse, as a parent, well, that's when the magic happens. Um, and I have a four-step process that I'll tease out here, and I'll absolutely share. I want to, since we're going down one of my favorite rabbit holes, ding ding ding. Uh,
Swing.
and Do you know about grandfather clocks and the law of entrainment?
I do not.
Cool. A physicist in the 1600s was laid up sick in bed. And physics in the 1600s, especially when you're sick in your own house and you were playing with your clocks. And he was taking grandfather clocks apart and putting them back together, two of them, at the foot of his bed. And he realized that wherever he put them back together, they would swing in unison in opposite rhythm, exact same unison. It's like, huh, that's interesting. He took it in. He was in the UK. He took it into like the Ministry of Science or Royal Society of Science or whatever they were calling it. He got laughed out of the room. In recent decades, it has been proven that those grandfather clocks were communicating through tiny vibrations in their wooden housing across the room. It is the same underlying mechanism as dripping faucets that sync up, tides in the moon, and females whose cycles sync when they spend a lot of time around each other. It's a vibrational mechanism. So, like, yeah, the woo community gets a lot of flack, and like, oh, it is kind of vibration based. Um, Here's the cool part. If you put a bunch of grandfather clocks in the room and one's taller than the rest, they all fall in sync with that one. Now, to me, that tall grandfather clock, if we're talking about, us as human beings in these meat suits, is an individual that can think about their thinking. It's awareness. I know my patterns and I'm aware of them. And I operate with intention, presence, and awareness and show up as my full, most authentic self, which I think when we boil down why a lot of people start a fitness journey, that's what we're looking for. Fitness is a phenomenal gateway drug to personal development. And then you add in 3 degrees of influence: your habits, actions, uh, addictions, beliefs, story you tell yourself are contagious to your friends, friends, friends. Well, if you're the biggest grandfather clock, 3 degrees forward and out, you can send out good stuff and filter what comes back to you. If you are a mom, if you are a wife, and you take control of your story, well, now getting that workout in gets easier. Showing up for your kids, for your family gets easier because no longer is it this thing that you think it is. You're aware of the operating system that's going on behind the scenes.
And to your point, the whole vibration effect. I mean, I don't know how many times people have gotten their fitness in shape, especially the moms. Then the husband joins in, the kids join in. And if anybody wants a good example of that, go listen to the last podcast episode with Samantha, how she lost 20 pounds. Now her kids are picking out vegetables in the grocery store. Husband's joining her for workouts. This stuff is legit.
It's dude, in the 8 years owning my gym, the biggest indicator of fitness level was, what house do you live in? When the couples that were there, they had the same fitness level. You know, and one of them may have started before the other. Oftentimes that's what it was. And then one would start after, and then their kids would be there on the side of the room doing push-ups. They join in the kids' class. Like that's just that's generational impact to me. Like you can go out and create all the financial empires you want. Uh, people are people are going to forget your name sooner or later. Enough generations go by, regardless of what kind of fortune you give. What kind of health can you leave though? Because I mean, especially for women, how many generations of eggs are alive inside them? I think like uh, if I'm not mistaken, uh, my daughter had all of her eggs alive or eggs that she would ever have in her before she was born from my wife. So if you want to talk about health, well, you have your granddaughter or your grandson. You are caring for their health through your DNA. That's
Yep.
some responsibility.
Yeah. I mean, people don't necessarily understand the gravity of this because when we talk generational health, people are like, yeah, it sounds kind of cool. But it's like the impact that you have on your kids and then they bring it to their kids. Like you could literally be the big bone family or the unhealthy family. And then it just starts with you and you're no longer that family.
Yep. And I also, as a, yes, there's the DNA side of it. There's also the responsibility side of it. Um, I once heard someone say, and this, I know that there's more layers to it than this. And I once saw the quote that it's not that obesity runs in your family, it's just that nobody runs in your family. And yes, there are many more layers to it. That's a bit of a crass thing to, and
Yeah.
there's something to it. Habits run in your family too. You know, so
Yeah. Because I mean, if we were to take it to the absolute extreme, if everyone in the family was stuck on a desert island with nothing to eat, everybody would lose weight. But
yeah,
it's not that simple. It's all the
yep,
other stuff that comes with it.
it is. It's the stories, man. When I had my gym, one of my coach's personal training clients, she walked off the floor and she goes, "Hey, I think I need a Chase psychology session." I was like, "I don't think we can legally call it that." And cool, let's sit down. So we sat down, and this is where I'll give you guys the 4-step process you can take and use on your own. And I was like, "What's going on?" She's like, "Well, I keep snacking." I was like, "Cool, let's take a look at that." So I had her write down the story of going to the cabinet the night before and binging on chocolate. And that's step one. We write it down. Step two, we read it out loud, conversational pace. And you want to use like specific events with this one. So she read out loud. It's like, "What do you feel?" It's like, "Anxiety." Like, "Where do you feel it?" I forget where exactly. Scale of 1 to 10, where do you feel it? And it's like, "When's the first time you can remember feeling that?" And I've seen this so many times when I run the system. Eyebrows go up, eyes get bright. "Oh, when I was 12 years old and my mom pressured me to have a certain body type for cheerleading." "Oh, okay. Well, let's go back and write that one." So we wrote that story about cheerleading tryouts and her mom making comments about having a certain body type. We did step one, we wrote it down. Step two, read it out loud. Step three, you read it as if you left the driveway with the parking brake on. So you read it just a little slower, and your body's going to want to speed up, but you're just going to stay nice and even. And then step four, you read it with a giant breath at every period, most of the commas, and some of the ands, any of the natural chunks. And at the end of it, it's aired out. Like this sounds so silly simple, right? Where I come in or a good coach comes in is you switch some of the words up. You know, and you take a sentence that was super sticky and one word at a time, you can create an affirmation out of it. Um, and guess who stuck to her nutrition plan after that session? Because we went back and looked at the story that was running the show.
Yeah. I think it's very powerful because a lot of people don't realize that language inside their head, the stories inside their head. That's really what is kind of the driver in a lot of the things we do.
Yeah. You know, and there's another angle to this. because the mindset and this and that has become so popular. I always want to make sure I layer this in that action dispels overwhelm. And creating supporting evidence is one of the best things we can do to make sure that that story is a nonfiction. You got a fair amount of people out there, and I see this more like less in the fitness space, more like in my realm now. And you get like personal develop coaches who went deep down the personal development rabbit hole. And like, I'm happy, I'm great because I have all these tools, but I have crippling anxiety because I have credit card debt because I'm too happy, so I don't take action on my business. But I'm gaslighting myself into telling myself I'm happy. Um, Create the supporting evidence. Take the action, do the thing. So, okay, we go in, we work the story, we make sure we're comfortable. Like we've cleared the resistance. Now, what are we going to do with it? What's one simple step we can take? And that's how we start compounding wins.
Yeah. And that reminds me of a talk that when I was back in Seattle with Sohee Lee, this brings up like a conversation that we were having, and basically just about people who really just don't feel fulfilled at the end of the journey. Kind of like the coach, where it's like, I feel happy. And it's like, cool. It's like the client, I just lost all the weight, but
Mhm.
you're not really happy at the end. And
Yep.
why is that?
Mm.
It it comes down to these tools that nobody works on during the journey, like the gratitude, the appreciation,
Mhm.
and like you said, the proof.
Yeah. And that's just it. Work on it during the journey. Like still go on the journey. Um, there's like two ends to this spectrum, and it's almost like this inverse bell curve, right? Because a lot of people live on either end, and it takes skill to merge them and come into the middle. It takes reps to let the pendulum swing both ways and then let it rest in the middle. Of you got the people out there that only went on the journey, and now they have all this money and all this fitness, and they still have this nasty voice in their head, a victim mentality. And then you got people that dispel the victim mentality, that get super happy, sit around all day and meditate, but never go on the journey. And unfortunately, like you get to, well, fortunately, we get to go on this journey in this lifetime. Like we are here at this specific point in time when the world is an amusement park and there's a journey to be had. So combine the two.
Yeah. Yeah. And that also just brought up another thing that I always like feel horrible seeing when it's like, you ever know that person that's like clearly the gym is their prison, like they're a slave to it because they're so terrified of going back.
Yep.
It's not an empowering journey. It's oh, this is my new captor.
Yeah. 100%. It's another angle on the alcoholic that swapped the gym for the bottle. You know,
Yeah.
uh it's unfortunate. You see after being I opened my gym, yeah, when I got out of the Navy in 2014, but I was a personal trainer in 2008. Um, you've seen the belly of the beast enough, and you realize that a lot of these people with these super amazing aesthetic bodies are actually on exogenous compounds. They have really like the thing that keeps them going is their self-hate. Like
Yep.
because they have to find some sort of self-worth somewhere. Like it's rough out here. And like and me being me, I'll go the other way on that. Like it's okay to work out to look good. Like it's okay to want a good physique. And getting a good physique without cleaning up the inside is like polishing a car that there's just trash in every time you drive. Like you've cleaned the whole outside of your car. Like you're sitting in a moldy, mildew filled car that's been rained in over and over again. It's uncomfortable.
I'm uncomfortable just imagining that in my head. I'm just like, ugh. Okay. But I love all of this because it's the stuff that I love talking about that a lot of people don't hear enough of because Instagram, social like any social media really can be so full of this like fairy tale that doesn't really exist. And it's dominated by people that literally their bodies are their living. So that just makes it even easier to stick to the program because it's like people are going to call you out on it because that's
Yeah.
how Instagram and all that works. But the average person, it it's different. It's a different ball game and it's a different expectation level.
Yeah, so well said. And and you said it. Their bodies are their living. So then they create this message of, oh, if you do your 5 a.m. ice bath and your workout and this and that, you'll be successful. Well, if you work on your emotional intelligence and your ability to communicate, you'll be successful. And that's actually side fun note about that. The top 1% of people have, or top 1% of earners have a lower IQ than the top 10%. They have a higher EQ though. So, um, work on your emotional intelligence, work on how you show up day to day. Then you'll be successful in whatever realm you want. Um, and having enough energy and a body that moves well and pain free and has the strength to do things is really nice. And it's something that has went by the wayside. And I fully believe it's something that we ought to all be working on. These, I'll say it, these broke influencers who say that you need to be in shape to be successful. Um, that ain't it. They're just they're trying to sell you something.
And they
Um,
clearly haven't trained enough people because I can tell you right now, I train people in New Jersey and I've worked with people that are on freaking Wall Street, some of the richest people in the freaking world. They're not that in shape. They want to be, but they're not that in shape and they're more successful than those people ever will be.
bro, the best, the strongest I was, the fastest I was, my business was in shambles. Like
Yep.
shambles. I had a 530 deadlift. I could do Fran in 2.5 minutes, but that's a workout. It's not a person. It's a CrossFit workouts were
Good
named.
old Fran.
Yeah. But there's a time trade-off there. And people who drive time and energy into business, they're not driving as much time into measuring their food. They're not driving 2 hours a day into a workout, right? Um, you can be healthy. You can be in top 5% health and still have a thriving business and thriving family. It does not take as much as it takes to be somebody using exogenous compounds with a top 1% physique. Notice I'm saying physique, not health. It's know what
And
you
that's not,
want and go after it.
yeah, and that's not even equating for their education or ability to help either.
Mm.
Because I know there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast that have probably bought a program or two from somebody on the internet who looks the part, says all the right things, but at the end of the day, they just don't have the tools or the systems to actually help them.
And this is an interesting conversation. The tools or the systems to help them, right? Um, because, yeah, there are a lot of uneducated people trying to help. And there are also a lot of people who have read a lot of books and know all the information and are still working to build the ability to connect and help. And it's this interesting paradox there between because there's one guy that comes up for me and he was an in-person trainer. He was a couple towns away. One of the smartest cats I knew about fitness, right? But he went out of business because he couldn't connect. So a lot of these people are really good at connecting from what I've seen and lack some of the actual knowledge to be able to truly help people. And
Yeah.
I'm interested on your take on it, but it seems to me from coaches that I've met from my own journey that as an experienced professional, you're like, well, I know this stuff, and this is the stuff, and this is what I see coaches do, and this is why I'm up here. But then you got these people that maybe don't have as much education, or maybe they do, and they're just better marketers over here actually getting clients because they're still talking to people where they are.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's like we we're very familiar with the type of people that train in person and are very good connectors, and they never have to go look for a client ever because the people don't want to leave them. Now,
Mhm.
they can't grow like a huge online presence overnight because they don't have the tools for that. But then on the flip side, there's people who can be friends with anybody that are super bubbly and they could sell a program like nobody's business. But at the end of the day, they're all hype and they're all motivation, but there's zero results. So it's
Yep.
like you kind of need both,
Yeah.
and the people that have both are very rare because the bubbly marketing types stand out like nobody's business, and they get a lot of people in and then turn them off to the whole process, when it's like there's a lot of good coaches that just aren't that good at marketing.
It's so, this is why I do what I do. Um, if I may for a second, I know I might lose some of your audience. Luckily, we're at the end of the show,
And
coming
I,
up at
I
the end
like
of our
peeling
program.
back the curtain a little bit on this
Yeah.
stuff because then people can actually understand why it's so hard to find good people and why so many people struggle on the journey. Like
Yeah.
the coaching process and people being good coaches and putting themselves out there isn't that easy. And that's
No,
why everybody struggles together.
it's rough, man. And I started like, I will say this is the phrase that came to me a couple of years. I started seeing the matrix on the online business stuff like a few years ago. It's like, this is that, this is X, this is Y, this is Z. And I had a couple clients come back to me, guys who went through my program and they would go get this nutrition and this mindset certification and be like, hey man, how'd you build this? I was like, I'm not a business coach, mostly because I didn't want to be one of those guys, right? Like, come make money online. Like, and then one of them called me out, called me forward. He's like, dude, you've been an entrepreneur for like 9 years. This was like just in the last, like I only made the shift to business coaching about 12 months ago. This is about 14, 16 months ago now. He's like, you've been an entrepreneur for like 9 years. You're in business acquisition now. You ran and you built a team. You're my favorite coach I've ever worked with. Can you just like give me some help? I was like, oh, I actually am an entrepreneur and I actually do understand business. So I asked who was in my audience. And turns out it was more aspiring coaches than anything. It's like, okay, cool. I have some coaches that look up to me. I ran a free workshop. They loved it. Two people asked to sign up afterward. They got great value as clients. Like, okay, the reason I didn't want to be a business coach, I did like what I needed was a dose of me coaching me. It's like the reason I didn't want to be a business coach was because I saw the opportunity for improvement in the market. Like I saw that for somebody to actually show up and care about their clients, not just hand them cookie cutter stuff and help them implement, yeah, tools that work in a custom way for their business. Like, okay, cool, let's actually do this. But that's why I do it because can I cuss on here?
Fuck yeah.
I was in a car in Austin at an event a couple weeks ago. And this woman's now a client. She's like, "What do you do? What do you do, Chase?" I was like, "Well, a lot of coaches are great coaches, but they're dog shit marketers. So I help them." She's like, "Oh yeah, I need that." You know, she's like a 20-year physical therapist, has a little practice out of her house, speaks on professional development. Just need help getting out there. Um, that's why I do what I do because it is so hard for good coaches who really love the nitty gritty of helping people to get out there and enroll the clients who deserve to be with them.
Yep. And this brings me to the big question I wanted to ask you, which is what are some consistencies you see with the people you help with their businesses and the clients that you used to train? Because I know that there's a lot of things that are very similar because it's like at the end of the day, it's human behavior. Like,
Yep.
what does it look like when it comes to that?
Phenomenal question. The people that did good in the gym, they start and they keep going and they lean into the fact that change does not happen in a vacuum. Okay, I just sent out an email yesterday that numerous people responded like, "Thank you for sending this." And it's about seasons of loneliness because when you start a new journey, you're gonna The people that got you where you are will not be the people that take you where you go. Plain and simple. And you will up level out of friend circles, out of social circles. Turns out they were just drinking buddies. Turns out they were just gossip friends. Like, that's fine. Go on your journey. And the people that want to do it, they lean into going on their journey and they own it as theirs. They do not say, well, I paid $3,000 for personal training. Why isn't this working? Well, I saw your Instagram stories over the weekend. I saw your Snap stories. Like, you know, um, they take responsibility and they take the action and they are looking for a new paradigm.
That just brought me back to, again, another thing in Seattle. Jordan Syatt, one of like the big names as
Man,
far as
you
trainers.
I, I'm drawing parallels with a lot of good names getting on stages,
You
huh?
really are. You really are. But he used to be, for anybody who doesn't know, he was Gary Vaynerchuk's trainer, and that's the guy, like the head of Vayner Media, one of the biggest media companies out there. And he's like, if I'm being brutally honest, the reason a lot of people are not where they want to be is because they need to work harder. And a lot of you have no concept of what working harder actually looks like.
This is interesting, right? And do they actually want to be where they think they want to be?
Yep,
Because that what you have is indicative of what you want. And man, does that ever sting for some people to hear. Like,
it does.
you
It's
know,
a gut check. It's like,
I want to
oh,
pay off I want to pay off my credit cards and be debt free. Really? Why'd you put a $2,000 facial on your credit card? If anyone from your target audience is still around, that just stung somebody. Uh,
yeah,
it's like, no, no, you don't. Because if you wanted it, like whatever you place ahead of it, that's what you want. You don't want the other thing. Well, I want this, but I also want this. I want to have my cake and eat it too. And man, I don't know. Sorry, I'm going on a bit on a rant here. I don't know if it's
that's what we
social
do here.
media. I don't know if it's social media or I had an economics professor in my limited run at college that called it the McDonaldization of America. But there's this convenience factor that we've all become so fucking addicted to. And if you can, here's my answer to your question. When you can master delayed gratification, and yeah, do the work on yourself, become happy, and don't expect to feel good tomorrow when it took 10 years to feel like shit today.
Yep. And I think this brings a good point up, because I know this is a very big thing when it comes to like the whole AI boom going on right now. A lot of people are getting real lazy with like emailing and certain
Oh,
things, and everything kind of looks and sounds the same. But this whole AI and convenience factor, it should allow us to do more of the right things,
mm.
not, oh, this takes place so I can be lazier.
I mean, AI, DoorDash, Amazon, like paying for every single service to happen around your house. And like, oh, well, I don't have time to do my lawn or do this or do that or um, because I need to work. Or do you need to work because you want to pay people to do everything? Like, dude, 150 years ago, we all took care of our land and our animals and our crops.
Yeah.
We are living in an experiment right now.
Yeah. And it brings it back to the Camaro, because I really like, I have a theory that I think it's true. Most people are driving a car or leasing a car that is holding them back from achieving what they actually want to achieve.
I bought a 2020 Tacoma TRD Pro in 2020 in COVID because I was like, they're just shutting us down for. I'll be back to. I had a record month before our shelter in place. I thought we were going to be spinning again. I sold it a year later for 3 grand more than I paid for it. Thank you for that market. Uh, and I bought a oh
Well
07
played,
four.
sir.
I bought a oh 07 4Runner for cash, man. I got rid of my one owner oh 07 2007 Toyota 4Runner, the V8 with 116,000 miles on the clock. It was barely broken in. So I'll drive that thing till the wheels come off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's drive a jalopy and have $1 million in the bank, or have $1,000 a month car payment and be broke.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like when I just got my truck, which I was very reluctant. I was like, I don't want a new car, but the other one crapped out on me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm chatting it up with the person who's selling it to me, and she's like, we're obviously talking fitness nutrition because that happened to come up. And she's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to like get a trainer or everything, but I just don't have the money. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. What It's okay. Not everybody can afford it. And then we go on to talk about how she leases every 3 years because she just loves having a new car. And I'm like, I'm not going to say it. I want to get a good deal on this car. I'm going to hold back.
What you have is indicative of what you want. And if there's any coaches listening or anybody with a business, people pay for what they value. So when this is, and it used to grind my gears, some of the marketing in the fitness industry. And then I realized, like, maybe these people are really good coaches. Maybe they're a better coach than I am because they can meet people where they truly are and explain the value of what they do. And that's a skill.
It is. It is. And it's a lot of coaches don't want to actually understand their value. Or not that they don't
That
want to, they just don't understand their value in general.
100%. And they think that it devalues their service or their intelligence or their knowledge to take it down to their client's level. And it's like, well, if you only want the people from your certifications following you and engaging with your content, keep speaking at the knowledge level of your certifications.
Yeah.
But that shit is 12 to 15 rungs up the ladder.
It's
And
like
your
going
client,
to it's like going to get your car fixed and they're talking about all the parts of the engine and your just eyes are glazing over like, what? Like,
yep,
is it fixed or not?
100%. It's like if my wife starts talking about the bugs that feed fermentation because she's a product manager for a nutrient biotech company. Like, it's what? That's really cool. Thank you for sharing it with me. I'm really trying to grasp it. I have some level because, like, I understand nutrition, but like she has a food engineering degree. It's a whole nother world, man.
That's
Um,
wild.
it's wild, you know. And your clients are standing on the ground, staring at the bottom rung of the ladder. Go down there and market there and climb the ladder with them. Are you familiar with Joseph Campbell's hero's journey?
No, I've heard the hero's journey, but I'm not sure if it was Joseph Campbell's.
Yeah, it's likely he's the one that recognized this mono myth throughout all of myth, and it's so there's essentially it's this circle, and there's the call, the refusal of the call, the meeting the mentor, and then you go through the threshold, through the abyss, back through up and over. You go through trials and tribulations, and you come back into the ordinary world with the elixir. A lot of coaches try to market about the elixir or try to market about the abyss. You are the guide that meets your clients in the ordinary world before they go through the threshold. Learn to talk about that, and you might actually start connecting with people.
Yeah, 100%. It's powerful because I think a lot of people, like the people listening right now, are on that ground
Yeah.
level where it's like, I just want help, don't really totally understand it, just speak to me.
Yeah.
And it's very, very challenging to get to that point where you learn everything and then come back down.
It's super challenging. And I'll take this angle on it too. Parents, like, you're a guide through your child's hero's journeys. Like, get down to their level. See the world from 24 inches off the ground and from 25 months into life and go there.
Yeah. And I think that's a great place to drop the mic, to stick a pin in it and let everybody kind of like marinate on that for a sec, because this was a lot of really good stuff. And I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this.
Cool, man. I appreciate you having me on. Thoroughly appreciated the conversation. Great hosting.
Hey, same here. And I appreciate that too. Always try to do my best. And I'm glad that you were able to feel comfortable and give us all the wisdom that you did. So, for everybody listening, as a thank you to Chase and just a thank you to the show, if you heard anything that really stuck out and resonated with you, or you have that one friend that you're like, damn, they really need to hear this, go and send it their way. Tell them that Brian and Chase say hi. And then if you've already done that, be sure to follow the show so you don't miss another episode. So, Chase, if they're like, wow, this guy's awesome, I want to see more of his stuff, where can they find you?
Instagram is the place where I reside the most at Coach_Chase_Tolleson. I really want the just straight Chase Tolleson tag, and somebody has it on a dead account. If you guys want to go report them, you can do that for me. Say they're impersonating me. Um, and yeah, chasetolleson.com has some stuff on there. Come join my
Awesome.
email list. I don't write AI. I don't write just business stuff. I just go off on philosophical rants. So
Yeah. So if you enjoyed this episode, definitely get on that email list.
yeah.
All right, cool, cool. And everybody, if you're listening and you're like, wait, where do I search for that? Don't worry. Go down to the show notes, go into the description. It's all right there. Click away and you'll be all set. So thank you guys for tuning in all the way through. Really appreciate it. I will see you all next time. But until then, go kick some ass. See you later.